Cobalt sat at the fresh kill pile, tearing into a mostly frozen rabbit. The unexpectedly heavy snowfall was starting to make hunting difficult, but somehow the cats of this clan were making it work. Of course, Cobalt and Trinket were expected to help, which, yeah, that was fair. They couldn't really expect to be given a place to stay and just freeload off a bunch of other cats. Trinket seemed to be enjoying herself, at least. She'd always had a soft spot for kits and was really good with the kits in the clan. And speaking of kits, their mother had just walked up to the fresh kill pile and picked out a blackbird.
Do you mind if I join you?
The queen meowed in her high voice. Knock yourself out, Cobalt replied. I mean, you've got kits to feed, right? Darkflower purred in amusement.
I think they're a little old for milk these days, but I appreciate where you're coming from.
She took a bite out of the bird before continuing.
And speaking of appreciation, I have to remember to thank Trinket the next time I see her. I'm really glad the two of you are here.
The blue-eyed Molly flicked her tail dismissively. It's no big deal.
Come on, that's not true.
Cobalt narrowed her eyes at the queen. What's that supposed to mean?
Oh, you know.
Darkflower's eyes sparked mischievously as they met Cobalt's.
Just that you and Blossom Star have been spending an awful lot of time together.
Yeah? So what? Cobalt tried to keep the defensiveness out of her voice, barely keeping her hackles from raising.
Oh, I didn't mean anything by it.
Darkflower meowed quickly.
Sorry if I made it sound like a bad thing. Just, if anything, I always noticed that Blossom Star seems much happier after spending time with you.
Yeah?
Yep.
Darkflower purred.
Honestly, don't worry so much about coming back from Patrol's empty pod. StarClan knows how many times me and Mintcloud go off together and completely lose track of what we were doing.
Cobalt began to sputter as the other Molly tried to give her romantic advice. Look, me and Blossom Star, we're not like that, okay? We're hanging out, that's all.
If you say so.
The playful teasing tone remained in Darkflower's voice.
But you know, if you and Trinket were to decide to stick around past Leaf Bear, it'd make a certain leader very happy.
Cobalt gulped down the rest of her rabbit quickly, trying hard not to think too deeply on what Darkflower had said. Darkflower had only planned on staying in the Petal Grove for a little while. She loved SunClan, really, she loved it so much, but sometimes she just wanted to take a break and get away from camp for a bit. Sure, maybe she should have let someone know where she was going, and maybe taking a nap in the snow wasn't the best idea, but she had such fond memories of this place, and talking with Cobalt had brought them back. But she had awoken half covered in snow, and what was previously meant to be a late afternoon nap had turned to her sleeping until the moon had risen high in the sky, her paws numb and her limbs going stiff. Darkflower struggled to her paws, almost tripping and falling over them from the lack of feeling. That definitely couldn't be a good thing. She needed to get back to camp, and fast. She stumbled and dragged her way through the snow, but she couldn't help but imagine what everyone else's reactions would be. Trinket would scold her and insist she stay in the nursery with her kids for at least a few days. She could already hear Patchson telling her off for not thinking and putting her life at risk. Leaf Bear was the harshest season for a reason, after all, and her adventurous spirit didn't make it any less dangerous to sleep in the snow. And Mintcloud? Her mate would fuss over her, constantly asking if she was alright, insisting on pampering her in whatever nest she was bundled into, and curling with her to make sure she stayed warm, telling her it was okay to take a break while she recovered, and he'd make sure everything was okay. As caught up in her imagination as she was, one of her paws slipped under her, and she fell onto her side in the snowbank. The numbness had begun to creep up her legs, and even this much travel had made her so tired. She would rest, just for a bit. She'd rest, and then she'd go home. She'd go back to warmth, to her kits, to her mate. But for now she was so tired and so cold, she just needed to close her eyes. The night crept longer and longer over the valley, and the cats of SunClan still saw no sign of the missing queen. Mintcloud paced anxiously near the camp entrance. He normally didn't mind Darkflower leaving. She always told him what she did and who she met when she came back, and he loved her adventurous spirit, but usually she'd have come back by now. And now with the snow as deep as it was, making travel difficult, and the leaf bare air so dangerously cold out in the open, what if something bad happened to her? Trinket watched the young Tom's relentless pacing, and decided she'd had enough of it.
Alright, that's enough of that. Into the nursery with you.
Mintcloud blinked in surprise at the small Molly. Me? In the nursery? Yep. Trinket gave him a nudge. There's no use spending your energy on pacing and worrying about what-ifs when you could be more useful and spend it on your kits. But Darkflower would want you to take care of yourself and your kits while she's gone, Trinket finished. I can and will drag you in there by the scruff if need be, Mint Cloud. Don't make me! Quickly, Mint Cloud hurried in the direction of the nursery, brushing past an amused sparrow pellets along the way. That was really impressive. Remind me not to get on your bad side, the Ginger Tom meowed. The little Molly just snorted, though she preened from the compliment. Please, if you thought I was bad, you should meet some of my friends. Besides, she lowered her voice, glancing in the direction Mint Cloud had gone to make sure he wouldn't hear her and start worrying again. If something bad did happen to Darkflower, then the kids are going to need their father more than ever. Sparrowpelt hummed doubtfully, looking towards the camp entrance. Well, Darkflower always did go off on her own and never told anyone why. Who's to say she didn't just decide to leave the clan altogether? Because no mother would ever abandon her kits, Trinket hissed. Even as she said that, the echoes of Kit's cries and the faintest bit of guilt played at the edges of her memory, and she pushed it aside. Sparrowpelt, on the other hand, just scoffed and narrowed his eyes, some indecipherable emotion on his face. Sure, you just keep telling yourself that, he muttered, stalking away. Trinket stared after him, wondering what his deal was. Again, the whispers of loss and remorse played around in her mind, and she shoved it aside. Whatever, Tom's like Sparrowpelt would never understand a mother's love for her kits. So, from this day forward until you have received your warrior name, you shall be known as Bramblepaw. Bramblepaw! Bramblepaw! The cats of Briarclan all cheered, huddled together beneath a tall rock for protection from the cold. The loudest voice amongst them all was Bubblestream, who watched her daughter proudly. Despite having never grown up with any of these clan traditions, she'd been happy to learn them and was proud to see her daughter being made an apprentice. As far as she knew, Bramblepaw was the first apprentice in the clan to not have any blood from the old clans. Vixenstar's gaze settled upon one of the warriors in the crowd. Duckfeather, I believe you are ready to take on an apprentice. You've shown yourself to be loyal, and your ThunderClan training has been quite useful in a thick forest like ours. I trust that you will teach Bramblepaw all you know. Duckfeather stepped forward to touch noses with Bramblepaw, barely suppressing their amusement at how loudly the young cat was purring. So, what are we gonna do first? She meowed, eyes shining. Well, Duckfeather glanced back past the stones that made up the camp entrance, grimacing at the high mounds of snow that covered the ground. Unfortunately, I think a tour of the territory or anything outside the camp will have to wait a bit till things clear up. What? Bramblepaw's excitement melted away at that. Oh, come on! I'm sorry, I promise we'll explore when the weather's better though, honest. But for now... They glanced around the stone clearing, finding a bit of open space. How about I teach you some old ThunderClan battle moves? The cats of Briarclan and Reedclan walked under the full moon side by side in a tense silence. At the head, Finchstar strode proud and collected, while Vixenstar carefully hid her discomfort and wariness. When Reedclan had first appeared in Briarclan territory, Vixenstar and the rest of her cats had been bracing themselves for a fight, wondering if this was an invasion. And then Finchstar stepped up to the front, claiming he wanted their cats to attend the gathering together as a sign of good faith, and that despite whatever rumors they might have heard, he wanted their clans to get along. Vixenstar had asked why Finchstar didn't just go to the community. After all, they were so much closer, but Finchstar had scoffed. Their opinion doesn't matter in our world, considering they're not clan cats. Truthfully, they're lucky to even be invited to our gatherings. Vixenstar had refrained from telling the Reed clan leader that she'd been the one to invite the community, or from making any other commentary, and exchanged a meaningful look with Tidestorm, before they reluctantly accepted Finchstar's offer to travel together. But if Finchstar expected her to believe his claims, well, he'd have to do better. Actions say so much more than words, after all. But if it was a game of words he wanted, well, Tood could play at that. The two clans arrived at the gathering together, where SunClan and the community were already waiting, whispering confusion as they watched Briarclan and Reedclan enter the clearing side by side. Finchstar didn't pause for a moment as he jumped to perch upon one of the rocks, Vixenstar doing the same. Blossomstar glanced worriedly between the two, opening her mouth to say something, but Finchstar spoke before any words could leave her mouth.
Now that we are all here, the gathering can begin, he yowled. Reedclan has prospered, despite the trials Leaf Bear brings. Our clan has grown stronger, in fact, both in morale and in number, as Grey's Cloud has had a litter of kits, Ember Kit and Leopard Kit. Since the last gathering, we've established our territory in the wetlands, and we shall continue to maintain it. We hope that come New Leaf, these lands will sustain us well, and we hope to establish trust between the clans. And Steel, of course, it's a pleasure to meet you in the flesh.
He sat back down with a pleased look, allowing Steel to speak and rise.
Indeed, Finchstar. I am pleased to finally be able to formally welcome you and your clan to the valley. It is good to hear that you have settled in well.
A few community cats scoffed, but Steel continued, ignoring them.
Albatross has managed the community well in my absence, but now I have returned to my role. It has been brought to my attention that many cats in the valley have been passing through our camp and have nowhere to go, so we will continue to provide them sanctuary. As we do this, Albatross's kits have finally reached the age that they may begin to train for whatever path they choose to take. Of course, we have still found wolf scent in the vicinity of our camp, so I would advise any passerby to stay on guard.
He turned to Vixenstar and dipped his head respectfully as she stood.
I am glad to hear that your clans have been well, and I can respect wanting to establish trust.
She sent a pointed look in Finchstar's direction.
Though I have to say, if that is your goal, wandering so far into BriarClan territory unannounced simply to escort us to a gathering we already planned to attend is an interesting way of showing your intentions.
Finchstar glared back at her as the crowd below began to murmur, until she turned back and continued.
BriarClan has managed this Leaf Bear. Unfortunately, one of our cats perished due to a fallen branch that collapsed on them. But we extend our gratitude to SunClan for aiding us in rescuing the kits from what could have been their demise. On a happier note, Bramblepaw has just been made an apprentice under Petal Spots, and Duckfeather's kits are soon to be apprentices as well. That is all the news in BriarClan.
She sat and turned to Blossomstar, who had watched the others anxiously.
SunClan has been, mostly well.
Finchstar's ears flicked in her direction as he picked up on the uncertainty in her voice.
Our visitors have given us the aid that we've needed, whether hunting for the clan or helping around the camp. And Sparrowpaw has just been made an apprentice. Unfortunately, Darkflower's gone missing, and we believe that she perished away from camp.
You believe? You mean you don't know?
Finchstar scoffed. Blossomstar stammered, not meeting his eyes.
Well, we haven't been able to recover a body. We think a predator might have scavenged her remains, or...
You think? How do you know she didn't leave of her own accord? After all, she's hardly the only cat you failed to keep track of.
What? I don't...
Enough!
Vixenstar interjected, looking at a cloud passing by the moon.
This is not the time or place to argue. If there's no further news, I say we end the gathering here.
Well, for a first gathering, that had been a disaster. Or, well, that's what Midnight Fur thought anyway. Although Vixenstar had called for an end to the gathering, everyone remained within the clearing, reluctant to leave without at least sharing a bit of conversation, despite the tense atmosphere. Midnight Fur glanced around as he sat at the edge of the crowd, wondering who he should speak to, or if he should stay on his own. And then he felt something slam into his side, and pain ripped through his shoulder. Without thinking, he immediately whirled on the figure with claws unsheathed, and the yowls of battling cats filled the clearing. Around the wrestling felines, other cats jumped back and cried out in alarm, but finally Midnight Fur pinned the calico molly he'd been grappling with. Tantomeal. "What's your problem?" he snarled at the Reedclan queen.
My problem?
Tantomeal hissed.
My problem is...
Reedclan has violated the truce!
Midnight Fur rolled his eyes and turned to the voice, about to chime in that, duh, he already knew that, and stopped short as a pair of SunClan cats emerged, covered in blood, the deputy leaning heavily against the other.
What happened?
Blossomstar gasped, pushing her way through to meet the other mollies.
Finchstar happened,
The gray molly growled, Foxspring nodding weakly beside her. Whatever was happening in the clearing was a distraction. He attacked her while everyone was focused on that fight. She nodded at Midnight Fur and Tantomeal.
Then it's best we all leave now,
Vixenstar meowed. Blossomstar, Steel, gather your cats. We should have left as soon as the gathering ended. Alright.
Well, it appears congratulations are in order, Vixen Star.
Clay rumbled.
You're definitely expecting kids.
Well, Vixen Star's expression couldn't seem to settle on one emotion. That's surprising. I suppose I'll have to tell Tidestorm, and I'll have to figure out how to manage the clan while I'm busy with my kits. Clay scrutinized the new queen carefully.
You don't seem very excited about this.
I am, really. It's just... Vixen Star trailed off, unsure how to continue. Before she could, however, Peachpaw pushed her way into the den. Perhaps it was too kit-like of a thought, but Vixen Star mentally thanked the Grey Molly for saving her from having to formulate a proper answer.
Sorry if it's a bad time,
Peachpaw meowed, noticing Vixen Star in the den.
but I really need to talk to Clay.
Clay sighed, giving Vixen Star a look that promised he was going to talk to her later, and turned fully to face Peachpaw.
If this is about our last conversation, I hope you've taken my advice and thought things through.
I have. I've been learning other skills. Hunting, fighting, everything. But this is what I want. Teach me to be a medicine cat.
Well, you certainly sound determined.
Clay glanced back at Vixen Star.
What do you think?
Truthfully, this was the first time that Vixen Star had even heard of Peachpaw's desire to be a medicine cat, but the resolve on her face was unmistakable. I think it's a good idea. She certainly has the drive.
Then it's settled.
Clay purred at Peachpaw.
We'll visit the Moonspring tonight, then.
New Leaf may have just arrived, but the biting cold and snowfall of the harsh valley leaf bear still lingered, and made hunting all the more difficult. Duckfeather would have much preferred to wait for the weather to clear before beginning Bramblepaw's training. The harsh elements were difficult on an experienced warrior, let alone an apprentice just out of the nursery, but the lack of food meant that all paws old enough to hunt were needed, and that meant teaching Bramblepaw how to hunt in the snow.
Your pelt's gonna stand out against the snow when you're out in the open,
they were saying as they instructed their apprentice in the hunter's crouch.
Thankfully, we've got a lot of underbrush around here, so that makes hunting a lot easier.
So, like this?
Bramblepaw began to stalk through the snow, carefully making sure it muffled her paw steps. Duckfeather nodded, pleased to see how quickly she'd picked it up.
Right, exactly. Just make sure you keep your tail still. I know you're excited, but that movement will be a dead giveaway.
Bramblepaw nodded and began to practice creeping through the snow as Duckfeather watched.
So, this is what you do as a mentor?
Duckfeather turned to see Midnight Fur padding up to them, his black fur standing out against the snow.
Sort of, they meowed as the Black Tom came to sit next to them. Right now, I'm just teaching her some of the basics. I don't know how good of a teacher I am, but at least she's been picking up on it pretty quick.
I mean, she seems to be doing okay.
Midnight Fur meowed as he watched.
Your kids are almost old enough to be apprentices too, right?
Yeah, any day now.
Duckfeather flicked an ear curiously.
Why? Are you interested in mentoring one of them?
Well, maybe.
Midnight Fur shrugged, looking down at the ground with narrowed eyes.
Just, do you really want them to be warriors?
Duckfeather blinked in surprise.
I mean, if they want to do something else, that's fine too, but...
No, I mean, aren't you scared of them getting hurt? Reedclan is no joke.
Ah, so that's what this was about. Duckfeather suppressed a grimace as they remembered their meeting with Nessa, telling them about the Reedclan kid she'd met who looked just like them.
Of course I'm worried. What kind of parent wouldn't be? But that's the whole reason we train them. I'd rather have them know how to protect themselves than get killed.
Midnight Fur nodded, but still didn't look completely convinced. Duckfeather continued.
If you do mentor one of my kids, I'd trust you to make sure they stay safe, alright?
There was a brief silence, before the Black Tom sighed.
I mean, the stuff you're saying makes sense, he meowed.
Yeah, I'll make sure nothing happens. And if Reedclan does make any move, you'll have my back too, right?
Duckfeather suppressed an amused snort. Did this cat really join BriarClan expecting that he'd have to fend for himself?
Of course I will, they meowed. That's the whole point of being in the clan.
New Leaf was finally beginning to take hold on the valley as the snow and ice thawed and prey began to creep from their hiding places. And with prey more abundant, many cats had begun venturing farther from the shelter of their homes to hunt. The cats of the community were no different, with Nessa and Void hunting near the stones that marked the border with Reedclan, both on edge and keeping an eye out. Of course, the cats of Reedclan had learned to mask their scent, and Scorchheart and his patrol lay in wait as they sized up the two enforcers. As scrawny as they appeared to be, the battle scars and sharp eyes belied a fierceness that was not to be underestimated. Still, as distasteful as Scorchheart found the task he'd been given, orders were orders, and he did have to keep up appearances as the deputy. With a silent flick of his tail, he signaled the rest of the Reedclan cats to follow him as they emerged into the open, startling the community cats. Void's lips curled into a snarl as he saw the newcomers. Reedclan! Next to him, Nessa narrowed her eyes, though the way they flickered between the newcomers gave way her nervousness. What brings you here? She meowed. I was under the impression that clan cats preferred to stay behind their own borders. True, that's true, Scorchheart meowed as he continued to advance, his patrol fanning out behind him. But we are also in the business of expanding our territory, and I'm afraid this land is ours now. I would suggest you leave now, or, well, things might not end well. He met Nessa's eyes calmly, maintaining eye contact as her tail twitched nervously. Void? She said finally. We should go, now. What? The younger Tom hissed. But we can't just leave. I thought you said— I know what I said, Nessa hissed back at him. But we're outnumbered and unprepared. We can't take on them alone. But— what's wrong? Among the Reedclan cats, Redwing had taken a step forward, with a smug demeanor about him. Too scared to face us? Void was already half turned to face Nessa, but froze mid-step at the Ginger Tom's taunts. What'd you say? Oh, so you're deaf and scared? Redwing pressed on, ignoring Scorchheart's disapproving gaze in his direction. Come on, I knew the community was a bunch of pushovers, but I was hoping for a fight. Redwing, back off now. Void, come on, please. Nessa gave the Black Tom a pleading look. It's not worth it. We'll come back later. Void ignored her, flexing his claws with a snarl. I'll show you a pushover! With that, he launched himself at Redwing. Nessa darted forward, attempting to intervene with the battle somehow, only to be intercepted by Sunnyleaf. The other Reedclan cats seemed to take this as some sort of signal, all joining in to the flurry of claws and fur. Antlerclaw and Koi Splash joining Redwing in fighting Void, and Scorchheart helping Sunnyleaf to subdue Nessa. Eventually, finally, Nessa managed to claw and wriggle her way away. Void, run! She yelled, already bolting. Void managed to break free as well, scrambling as Koi Splash nipped at his heels. As the community cats vanished from sight, and the Reedclan cats went about establishing scent posts in the new boundary, Scorchheart gave Redwing an annoyed glare. Was that really necessary? Oh, come on, you can't be mad at me for that! Redwing rolled his eyes. He shouldn't have taken the bait. The bait shouldn't have been out there in the first place, Scorchheart pointed out. Then he heaved a sigh. Still, I suppose Finchstar would approve of the results. Maybe it would have been best if Redwing had followed the rest of the patrol home. Everyone had finished their hunting and was growing tired and ready to go home, but Redwing had spotted an intruder, and, well, they hadn't fought to claim this territory for nothing. What's the meaning of this? The larger Black Tom snarled as Redwing grappled with him. I thought anyone was free to hunt here. Not now that this place belongs to Reedclan, Redwing hissed. Somehow, he managed to pin the other cat, hooking his claws into their flank and dragging, clawing into his side. Beneath him, the large Tom yowled in pain and began battering and kicking at Redwing's stomach with his hind claws unsheathed. One lucky kick, and suddenly all Redwing could feel was the tearing of claws through the soft flesh of his belly. Another harsh kick, and Redwing was shoved off the Black Tom, and had the breath completely knocked out of him. Redwing's vision blurred, and he staggered in place for a moment, barely able to keep his eyes focused as the Tom retreated and ran off. He should pursue them. He should make sure they weren't going to come back. But his weak attempt to take a step forward resulted in him collapsing on his side, lying in a slowly growing pool of red. Scorchheart soaked in the new leaf sunlight as he shared a meal with Shadowstep. For the time being, it was nice to imagine things were peaceful, as they should be. Perhaps it was foolish of him to hope for, but a part of him wanted moments like these to last.
And speaking of brighter spots in his life, he looked up to see Spotted Pelt leading Salmon Kid over to the fresh kill pile, a few minnows dangling from their jaws by the tail. "I see you've had some luck fishing today," he meowed as they set the kill down. Spotted Pelt purred, settling next to her mate on the opposite side from Shadow Step. "Yes, I think things have been going quite well," she meowed, watching as Salmon Kid darted off to go play with Lily Kit. "Salmon Kid's a fast learner. He paid very close attention to everything I did, and he's growing into a strong swimmer as well. It might be a good idea to bring Lily Kit to the shore sometime too," Shadow Step pointed out. "That way, she can catch up to her brother in skill." Scorchheart purred. "Well then, I know a good place by the shore. Perhaps all 5 of us could spend a day there while things are still relatively peaceful." Spotted Pelt purred at the suggestion. "That would be lovely." "Yes, I do quite like the sound of that," Shadow Step added. He opened his mouth to continue, but was cut off by Finchstar's loud yowl. "Let all cats old enough to catch their own prey gather below the great stone for a clan meeting!" There was a fury in Finchstar's voice, one that made Scorchheart tense as he quickly exchanged a glance with his mates, before the 3 got to their paws and hurried to where the gathering had been called. Many of the cats who were gathered murmured anxiously among themselves, and Scorchheart nearly froze as he caught sight of a still, bloody ginger body lying near the entrance to the medicine den. "As you may know," Finchstar began, "we recently expanded our borders to include a piece of territory at the edge of the community's hunting grounds. This was supposed to be a sign of strength, but after the rest of the patrol returned, Redwing stayed behind the longest, and upon investigating, he was found dead there. Rest assured, however, that Reedclan will have our revenge. I promise you all that Redwing's death will not go unpunished." With that, Finchstar leapt from his perch, signaling the end of the meeting, and padded up to where Scorchheart and Shadow Step stood. "You two, come with me. I need to speak with you." Scorchheart suppressed an anxious twitch of his tail, schooling his expression to something neutral, and glanced back at Spotted Pelt. "Would you, I'll go keep an eye on the kids," she meowed, dipping her head before she darted off. With that out of the way, Scorchheart and Shadow Step followed the brown tabby to an area just outside the camp where they would not be easily overheard. It took some effort for Scorchheart to not glance in his mate's direction and risk betraying any signs of unease that he was trying so hard to keep hidden. "You two are the cats that I can rely on most," Finchstar meowed. "And I know you'll agree that the death of one of our cats is not something to take lightly, which is why I want for you to go and exact Reedclan's revenge. A life for a life seems fair, don't you think? I want to see one of the community cats dead before the day is over." Scorchheart inhaled sharply. He'd figured that Finchstar had something planned for the community, but outright murder. Was Scorchheart really willing to resort to that to keep up his ruse? "You're right," Shadow Step spoke up, his voice completely neutral. "I do agree that the community must pay for what they've done, but I'm not a fighter." "No, but you do have your own set of skills. I'm sure you'll be invaluable to helping Scorchheart with finding and taking down the killer." Finchstar turned to head back to the camp. "You know what is expected of you. I'll see you when your task is done."
Ha! Take that!
Salmon Kit squealed as Larva Kit tackled him.
Hey! No fair! You're bigger than me! It's so fair! You're just not trying hard enough! I can make it fair!
Lily Kit crept up behind Larva Kit and pounced, dragging him off of her brother. All the adults in camp had been tense lately, ever since Redwing was killed, but Grace Cloud had gathered all the kids together and told them she didn't want them to worry about the stuff the warriors were doing, and that they were all safe in Reedclan, so here they were, play fighting like Larva Kit had insisted.
Not so tough now, huh?
Lily Kit squeaked as Larva Kit squirmed away from her.
Ha! I'm plenty tough!
The Calico Tom puffed out his chest as he spoke.
Just you guys watch! I'm gonna be the toughest warrior in all the clans! I'm gonna be strong enough to beat up cats like Froststar!
Salmon Kit frowned, tilting his head in confusion.
Why would you want to beat up Froststar?
Larva Kit shrugged.
I don't know. First cat I could think of. Finchstar really hates her though, so I bet she's like super evil or something. Maybe she's even worse in the community. But she can't be evil,
Salmon Kit protested.
She's super nice and gives good advice like all the other starry cats.
Lily Kit groaned internally as her brother said this. Not again. Larva Kit snorted and looked at Salmon Kit dubiously.
What, like you see Star Clan? He doesn't see anything,
Lily Kit interjected quickly, giving Salmon Kit a shove to try and tell him to keep it quiet.
He just has a lot of weird dreams. They're not dreams. I see them when I'm awake too.
Salmon Kit turned his head away from where they had been playing.
Look! There's a dark tortoiseshell watching us right now!
Larva Kit glanced at the spot Salmon Kit was looking. Sure enough, there was nothing there.
Lily Kit, it's official. Your brother's crazy. I'm not crazy. She's real. I can see her.
Salmon Kit gave his sister a desperate look.
Lily Kit, tell him. You know I'm not crazy, right?
Lily Kit hesitated. On one paw, Salmon Kit was her brother, but on the other, Larva Kit was watching her expectantly. And, well, it had been fine when Salmon Kit kept it to himself, but now...
I mean, I can't see anything there either, so...
Salmon Kit's expression fell.
You think I'm crazy too? I didn't say that. It's 2-1, Salmon Kit.
Larva Kit interrupted.
Who are you gonna get to agree with you? Those starry cats? They're not gonna help you. But they're real.
Salmon Kit's voice had grown quiet, and Lily Kit felt a pang of guilt as she saw him curl in on himself.
They talk to me. They're real. Whatever,
Larva Kit scoffed.
Lily Kit, how about we ditch the weirdo?
Again, Lily Kit hesitated. She should probably make sure that Salmon Kit was okay, but... oh, he was probably going to be mad at her. And she could talk to him later. And she didn't want Larva Kit to get the wrong idea either.
Yeah, okay.
She gave Salmon Kit an apologetic look as she walked away, but she didn't know if he could see it. Larva Kit shivered as he gulped down the last of the walnut he'd been eating. Jeez, it felt like the temperature had been slowly dropping all day. Of course, it was still early in New Leaf. Maybe it was normal for things to be that cold. Larva Kit? Crocopat's voice caught him off guard. Are you alright?
Yeah.
He mewed.
I just wasn't expecting the cold to come back. That's all.
Crocopat frowned in concern, sniffing him over. It's not that cold today. In fact, oh dear. I need to go gather some herbs.